The message traveled through space for 3 days before the Stellar Council picked it up. It was simple, almost childish in its construction. Basic mathematical sequences, simple pictures of atoms, and crude drawings of bipedal creatures waving from a blue planet. Ambassador Tae-min studied the transmission from his flagship, the Eternal Dawn. He had seen dozens of these first contact attempts over his long career. Young species always sent the same things: math, science, pictures of themselves. They thought they were being clever. But every civilization went through this phase. "How old do you think their world is?" asked his science officer, Veltor, as he analyzed the signal's origin point. Tae-min checked the stellar formation data. 4.5 billion years, maybe 5 at most. Very young. Their star is still in its prime. He shook his head with gentle amusement. Poor things probably think they're the first intelligent life in their system. The Stellar Council had protocols for this. Young civilizations needed guidance. They had to be brought into the galactic community slowly, carefully. Too much too fast, and they would panic or try to fight. Tae-min had uplifted 17 species in his lifetime. Humans would be his 18th. On Earth, Dr. Haewon received the response 3 days later. The message was complex, layered with mathematics that hurt her head to look at. But the meaning was clear. Someone was coming to visit. The world went crazy. Every government, every scientist, every person with a television wanted to know what would happen next. Dr. Haewon found herself leading Earth's first contact team, a job she never wanted but couldn't refuse. "They're being careful," she told the United Nations Assembly. "The message shows they understand we might be frightened. They're coming slowly, giving us time to prepare." President Nam-soo nodded from his seat. "What do we know about them?" "Their technology is far beyond ours," Haewon admitted. "The signal came from outside our solar system, but somehow they sent a response that reached us in just 3 days. That should be impossible. When the alien ships arrived 2 weeks later, they were beautiful. Smooth white vessels that seemed to flow like water through space. They took position near Earth's moon and waited. No demands, no threats, just patience. The first shuttle landed in a field outside New York. Tae-min stepped out with a small group of his people, all wearing simple white robes that somehow protected them from Earth's atmosphere. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and large dark eyes. When he spoke, his words came out in perfect English. "Greetings, children of Earth," he said with a warm smile. "We come in peace to welcome you to the larger universe." Haewon stepped forward, trying not to shake. "We welcome you to our world." Tae-min's eyes crinkled with kindness. "Your world is very young, very beautiful. We have watched species like yours before. You are at an important moment in your development." "Watched species like us?" Haewon asked. "Oh yes," Tae-min said, gesturing to his companions. "Intelligence is rare, but not unique. We have guided many young civilizations as they take their first steps into space. Your transmission was quite good for a first attempt. Over the following days, the aliens shared their knowledge freely. They showed humans pictures of other worlds, other species that had joined the galactic community. They explained that Earth was part of a spiral arm containing hundreds of intelligent species, all working together for peace and progress. Your planet is very young, Veltor explained to a group of Earth scientists. Most civilizations we know come from worlds that are 20, 30, even 50 billion years old. You have developed intelligence remarkably quickly for such a new world, Dr. Boram, one of Earth's top archaeologists, raised her hand. Our planet might be young, but human civilization goes back quite far. We have evidence of advanced societies from thousands of years ago. Veltor smiled the way an adult smiles at a child's drawing. Thousands of years is nothing, dear one. The Corvani civilization has records going back 50 million years. The Zenthari have monuments older than your sun. What you call ancient is barely a moment to us. The aliens meant well, but their attitude was clear. Humans were children who had just learned to walk. They needed guidance, protection, and most importantly, they needed to know their place. We offer you junior membership in the Stellar Council, Taemin announced at a ceremony in the United Nations building. You will have access to basic technologies, clean energy, simple medical advances, communication systems. In a few thousand years, when you have proven yourselves ready, you can apply for full membership. The humans accepted gratefully. How could they not? The aliens offered solutions to every problem Earth faced. Hunger, disease, energy shortages, all could be solved with galactic technology. The price was simply accepting their role as the newest, youngest members of a civilization that spanned the galaxy, but some humans were not entirely happy with the arrangement. Historian Da Yun spoke quietly to her colleagues after the ceremony. Something feels wrong about this. They keep calling us children, talking about how young our world is. Well, isn't it? Asked one of her students. 4 billion years compared to their 50 billion year civilizations? Da Yun frowned. That's what bothers me. How can planets be 50 billion years old when the universe itself is only 14 billion years old? Her student looked confused. Maybe we got something wrong. About the universe's age? Maybe, Da Yun said, but she didn't sound convinced. Meanwhile, in his quarters on the Eternal Dawn, Taemin reviewed the initial reports from Earth. Everything was proceeding normally. The humans were grateful, eager to learn, and properly respectful of their betters. They would make fine junior members of the galactic community. Sir, Veltor said, entering the room. I've been analyzing some of the human archaeological data they shared with us. There are some unusual readings. Taemin barely looked up from his reports. Unusual how? Some of their artifacts seem to show energy signatures I don't recognize. Very faint, probably just contamination from their primitive instruments. Don't worry about it, Taemin said dismissively. Young species always think they found something special in their early ruins. It's natural for them to want to feel important. Veltor nodded and left, but the readings bothered him. He had seen the artifacts of hundreds of species, and these human relics didn't match any pattern he knew. They looked old, not thousands of years old, but impossibly old. Back on Earth, Dr. Hei-Wan stood in her laboratory, staring at a communication device the aliens had given them. It was beautiful, complex, and completely beyond human understanding. But as she held it, she felt something strange, a sense that she had seen something like it before. The feeling made no sense. Humans had never seen alien technology before, this moment. Yet the device felt familiar in a way that made her deeply uncomfortable. Outside her window, the alien ships hung in Earth's sky like new stars, and Hei-Wan wondered what they had really gotten themselves into. 3 weeks after first contact, the cultural exchange program began. Ambassador Taemin had insisted on it. Young species needed to understand their place in galactic history, and the best way to do that was to show them how little they really knew about the universe. Veltor was excited. As the expedition's lead archaeologist, he would get to examine human artifacts and compare them to the relics of truly ancient civilizations. It would be educational for both species. The humans would learn humility, and he would add another young culture to his research. Dr. Boram met him at the Seoul National Museum. She was a small woman with serious eyes and hands that moved constantly when she talked. Veltor liked her immediately. She reminded him of young archaeologists from other species he had mentored over the centuries. "Welcome to our museum," Boram said, leading him through the main hall. "We've prepared a special exhibition of our oldest and most significant artifacts." Veltor nodded politely as she showed him pottery, stone tools, and metal weapons. They were exactly what he expected from a species only a few thousand years removed from hunting and gathering, well made for their level of development but primitive, by galactic standards. "These are impressive for your age as a civilization," he said kindly. "The Zenthari had similar tools at your stage of development. Of course, that was 40 million years ago for them." Boram smiled, but Veltor noticed. It didn't reach her eyes. "These are just the recent finds, the artifacts we show to the public. Would you like to see something older?" "Older?" Veltor chuckled. "My dear, your species has only had written language for a few thousand years. How much older could anything be?" "Why don't you see for yourself?" Boram said, leading him to an elevator. They descended far below the museum, past the public levels, past the research labs, into sections that required multiple security clearances. The elevator stopped at a level marked only with symbols Veltor didn't recognize. "Where are we going?" he asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his skepticism. "To see some recent excavations," Boram said. "We found these items about 50 miles outside the city during construction of a new subway line." The doors opened, to reveal a laboratory unlike anything Veltor had expected. The equipment was crude by galactic standards, but it was being used in ways that showed surprising sophistication. Human scientists worked carefully around objects that made Veltor stop and stare. "What is that?" he asked, pointing to a device. "That seemed to bend light around itself?" "We're not sure," Boram admitted. "It was buried about 200 feet down in geological layers we've dated to roughly 50,000 years ago." Veltor approached the object carefully. It was clearly artificial, but the materials were nothing he recognized. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Smooth curves that flowed like water, joints so perfect they seemed to be made from a single piece, and an energy signature that made his instruments sing with confused readings. "This can't be 50,000 years old," he said, checking his scanner. "The readings are unusual." "That's nothing," Boram said, leading him deeper into the lab. "Look at this." The next object made Veltor's breath catch. It was a crystal, formation that pulsed with soft light, surrounded by metal components that seemed to grow from the crystal itself. The design was so advanced that Veltor couldn't even guess at its purpose. "How deep was this buried?" he asked, his voice suddenly serious. 400 feet. The Geological Survey puts it at about 200,000 years old. Veltor's hands shook as he ran his scanners over the artifact. The readings were impossible. The metal showed signs of molecular engineering that wouldn't be developed by most species for millions of years. The crystal contained energy patterns that his civilization had only theorized about. "There must be some mistake," he said. "Contamination from surface materials, or perhaps the dating is wrong." Boram nodded to one of her assistants, who wheeled out another display case. "We thought so too. So we dug deeper. The third artifact took up most of the room. It was part of a wall or large machine, made from materials that seemed to shift and change as Veltor watched. Equations were carved into its surface, not in any human language, but in pure mathematical symbols that hurt his head to look at. This was found at 800 feet down, Boram said quietly. The rock around it is nearly 500,000 years old. Veltor's scanner was making sounds he had never heard before. The readings were off the scale, showing technology so advanced that his instruments couldn't properly analyze it. The equations on the surface were moving, rearranging themselves as he watched. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Humans have only existed for a few thousand years as an intelligent species. Your planet is too young to have developed this level of technology." "That's what we thought too," Boram said. "But we keep digging, and we keep finding things. Would you like to see the really old stuff?" Veltor could only nod, his scientific worldview crumbling around him. They took another elevator, this one going down for what felt like forever. When it finally stopped, they were in a cavern that had been carved from solid rock. The walls were covered in the same shifting equations, but these were older, more complex, and somehow more alive. In the center of the cavern sat something that made Veltor fall to his knees. It was a machine, or perhaps a work of art, or maybe both. It stood 30 feet tall and seemed to exist in more dimensions than Veltor could perceive. Its surface was covered in symbols that matched no known language, but somehow conveyed meaning directly to his mind. Energy flowed through it in patterns that followed laws of physics he didn't recognize. "How old?" he managed to ask. "The rock. Layers put it at about 2 million years, Boram said. "But our instruments can't get a clear reading on the object itself. It seems to exist in a different time stream." Veltor tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't support him. Everything he knew about galactic history, about the development of civilizations, about the age of intelligence in the universe, all of it was wrong. "Who built this?" he asked. Boram was quiet for a long moment. "We think humans did." "That's impossible. Humans have only been intelligent for a few thousand years." "Have we?" Boram asked. "Or is that just what we wanted you to think?" Veltor looked at her with new eyes. The simple archaeologist was gone, replaced by someone much older and more dangerous. Her eyes held depths he hadn't noticed before, and when she smiled, it was not the smile of a primitive being grateful for galactic guidance. "Dr. Boram," he said carefully, "what exactly are you telling me?" "I'm telling you that your understanding of human history is incomplete," she said. "We've been letting you believe what you wanted to believe. But perhaps it's time you learned the truth." She gestured to the machine, which was beginning to pulse with brighter light. "We didn't just find this artifact, Veltor. We've been maintaining it for longer than your civilization has existed." Veltor's communicator crackled to life. Taemin's voice came through, sounding worried. "Veltor, report. Your biosigns are showing extreme stress." "Ambassador," Veltor said, his voice hoarse, "you need to come down here. Everything we thought we knew about humans is wrong." "What are you talking about?" Veltor looked at Boram, who nodded encouragingly. "Sir, I think we're not dealing with a young species. I think we're dealing with something much, much older than us." The silence from the communicator stretched for a long time before Taemin replied. "We'll be right down." As they waited for the ambassador, Boram walked over to the ancient machine and placed her hand on its surface. The equations on the walls began to move faster, and the machine's light grew brighter. "You've been very patient with us," she said to Veltor. treating us like children, offering us junior membership in your council. It was almost cute. Almost? Veltor managed to ask. Boram smiled again, and this time Veltor saw something in her expression that made his blood run cold. It wasn't cruelty or anger. It was the kind of gentle amusement that comes from watching something small and young trying to teach its elders about the world. "We've been waiting a long time for the galaxy to be ready for the truth," she said. "Perhaps now is the time." Ambassador Taemin arrived with a full science team and 3 security officers. He had expected to find Veltor examining primitive human artifacts. Instead, he found his lead archaeologist sitting on the floor of an impossible cavern, staring at a machine that shouldn't exist. "By the 7 stars," Taemin whispered, looking up at the towering device. "What is this?" Dr. Boram stepped forward, no longer playing the role of eager student. "This is just the beginning, Ambassador. Would you like to see more?" Wu Jin emerged from the shadows at the far end of the cavern. He was a tall man with weathered hands and eyes that held secrets. "I'm Dr. Wu Jin, chief geologist for this project. I've been waiting to meet you." Taemin's security team moved to protective positions, but Wu Jin held up his hands peacefully. "There's no need for weapons. We've had enough time to hurt you, if that was our intention." "Enough time?" Taemin asked. "You've known us for 3 weeks." Wu Jin smiled. "Ambassador, we've known about your civilization for much longer than that. We've been watching you develop for the past 2 million years." Before Taemin could respond, Wu Jin gestured to a series of passages leading deeper into the earth. "Come, let me show you something that will change how you see everything." They walked through tunnels that had been carved with tools beyond anything in the galactic database. The walls were smooth as glass but showed no tool marks. Lighting came from strips of material that glowed without generating heat. The air was perfectly controlled despite being hundreds of feet underground. "These tunnels," Veltor said, running his scanner along the walls. "They're not carved. They're grown." "Very good," Wu Jin said approvingly. "It took us several thousand years to perfect the technique, much more efficient than conventional excavation." They emerged into a vast underground complex that stretched beyond the reach of their lights. Multiple levels descended into the earth, connected by graceful bridges that seemed to float in mid-air. Each level was filled with artifacts, machines, and structures that made the Galactic Council's most advanced technology look primitive. "This is impossible," Taemin said, his voice echoing in the enormous space. "Your species couldn't have built this." "You keep saying that," Boram observed. "But here it is." Wu Jin led them to a viewing platform overlooking the complex. "This facility has been continuously operated for approximately 2 million years. Every layer you see represents a different period of human technological development." He pointed to the highest level. "The most recent layer is about 50,000 years old. That's when we developed the first stable matter converters." He gestured lower. "The next level is 200,000 years old. That's when we solved faster-than-light travel." His finger moved to progressively deeper levels. 500,000 years ago, we mastered dimensional engineering. 1 million years ago, we learned to manipulate time itself. 2 million years ago, we built our first star." Taemin's scientific advisor, Dr. Kexra, was scanning everything frantically. "Sir, the energy readings from the lower levels are off. Our instruments scale. Some of these devices are drawing power from sources I can't identify." "Zero-point energy extractors," Wu Jin explained casually. "We tap directly into the quantum foam. Much cleaner than fusion reactors." 0 point. Extraction is theoretical, Kexra protested. Our best scientists have been working on it for centuries with no success. Your best scientists are children playing with toys, Boram said gently. No offense intended. They descended to the first active level, where human technicians worked among machines that defied understanding. The humans moved with casual familiarity around technology that made the Galactic Council's flagship look like a stone axe. How many of you know about this? Taemin asked, gesturing to the complex. All of us, Wu Jin said. Every human knows the true history of our species. We've just been waiting for the right time to share it. Waiting for what? For the galaxy to mature enough to handle the truth, Boram explained. Young civilizations tend to react poorly when they discover they're not as advanced as they thought. Veltor was examining a device that seemed to fold space around itself. This technology could revolutionize galactic transportation. Why haven't you shared it? We tried that once, Wu Jin said, his expression growing sad. About 40 million years ago, we revealed ourselves to a promising young species called the Vortai. We shared our technology freely, thinking they were ready. What happened to them? Taemin asked. They destroyed themselves within a century, Boram said quietly. The technology was too advanced for their social development. They turned our gifts into weapons and wiped out half their stellar neighborhood before we could stop them. We learned to be more careful after that, Wu Jin continued. We started watching civilizations develop naturally, only intervening when absolutely necessary. We've been doing it for millions of years. They reached the deepest accessible level, where the walls themselves seemed to be alive. Patterns of light flowed through the material like blood through veins, and the air hummed with barely contained energy. This is our oldest continuously operating facility, Wu Jin explained. 2 million years of uninterrupted research and development. Dr. Kexra was taking readings that made no sense. The power output from this level alone could supply energy to our entire civilization for 1,000 years. This isn't even our main facility, Boram said. This is just a small research outpost. Our primary installations are elsewhere. Elsewhere? Taemin asked. Scattered across the galaxy, Wu Jin said. Hidden inside planets, built into the cores of stars, floating in the dark between systems. We have infrastructure everywhere, Ambassador. You've been living in a galaxy that humans built. Taemin felt his world view collapsing. Everything the Galactic Council believed about the development of civilization was wrong. Humans weren't children, taking their first steps into space. They were ancient gardeners who had been tending the galaxy for millions of years. Why reveal this now? He asked. Because your civilization has reached a critical point, Boram explained. You're advanced enough to handle partial truth, but not so advanced that you'll try to steal our technology and destroy yourselves with it. Also, Wu Jin added with a slight smile, we were getting tired of pretending to be impressed by your advanced technology. They showed him more, manufacturing facilities that could build planets, energy collectors that drained power, from black holes and communication networks that spanned the entire galaxy. Every impossible thing was demonstrated with casual ease, like a parent showing off finger paints to a child. This changes everything, Taemin said finally. The Galactic Council, our understanding of history, our place in the universe, it's all wrong. Not wrong, Wu Jin corrected gently. Just incomplete. You've been living in the shallow end of a very deep ocean. Veltor looked up from an analysis station where he had been reviewing data that made his head hurt. How deep does this go? How far back does human civilization actually extend? Bo-Ram and Wu Jin exchanged a look that contained entire conversations. That, Bo-Ram said slowly, is a much longer story, and one that will require you to completely abandon everything. You think you know about the universe. We've already had to do that, Taemin said. No, Wu Jin said, his expression growing serious. You really haven't. What we've shown you today is impressive by your standards, but it's still just technology. The real story, the truth about what humans are and how long we've been here, that's something else entirely. What do you mean? Veltor asked. Bo-Ram walked to a wall display that showed a timeline stretching back millions of years. You assume that human civilization began when we developed agriculture and writing. That's not when it began, Ambassador. That's when it began again. She touched the display and it zoomed out, showing a timeline that stretched not millions of years, but billions. We've been here much, much longer than you imagine, she said softly. And this planet you think is so young? It's not our first home. It's just where we choose to return when we're ready to start over. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of ancient machines that had been running since before the Galactic Council's species had learned to make fire. Taemin realized that everything he thought he understood about humans, about Earth, about the galaxy itself, was about to change once again. Dr. Dayun waited in a room that shouldn't exist. The walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, and the furniture seemed to grow from the floor itself. She had been here many times before, but today felt different. Today, they would finally tell the truth. Ambassador Taemin and his team were led into the chamber by Wu Jin and Bo-Ram. Their faces showed the strain of having their understanding of reality torn apart piece by piece. Da-Un almost felt sorry for them. "Welcome, Ambassador," she said, rising from a chair that adjusted itself to her movement. "I am Dr. Da-Un, and I suppose you could call me a historian." "A historian," Taemin repeated, looking around the impossible room. "More human technology?" "In a manner of speaking," Da-Un said. "Please sit. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to accept." The furniture flowed and shaped itself to accommodate the visitors. Taemin's security team looked nervous, but their weapons would be useless here anyway. This room existed partially outside normal space-time, protected by defenses that could stop a supernova. "You've seen our recent technology," Da-Un began. "The machines we've built in the past few million years, but that's not really our story. Our story is much older and much stranger." She gestured, and the walls became transparent, showing not the underground facility they were in, but a view of Earth from space. But this wasn't the Earth Taemin knew. This Earth had different continents, different oceans, and 3 moons. "This is Earth as it was 70 million years ago," Da-Un explained, "during what we call the 4th cycle of human civilization." "4th cycle?" Veltor asked, his voice hoarse from too many impossible revelations. "Humans have risen to galactic dominance many times," Dayun said calmly. "We count at least 12 major cycles, though there may have been more in the very early periods." The view changed, showing massive cities that floated in the clouds, space elevators that stretched beyond the atmosphere, and ships the size of continents moving between the stars. "During the 4th cycle, we controlled most of this spiral arm," Dayun continued. "We had colonies around thousands of stars, created artificial worlds, and built structures that still exist today, though most species think they're natural phenomena." "The Magellan spheres," Dr. Kexra whispered. "The perfect energy collectors orbiting Rigel. They're human artifacts?" From the 7th cycle, actually, Da-Un corrected. The 4th cycle humans preferred more subtle engineering. Taemin was struggling to process what he was hearing. If humans were so advanced, what happened? Why are you living on a single planet pretending to be primitive? Da-Un smiled sadly. Because we learned something that no other species has figured out yet. Infinite expansion leads to infinite conflict. Technology without wisdom leads to destruction. Power without purpose leads to emptiness. The wall display changed again, showing images of war, not the simple conflicts between planets that the Galactic Council knew, but battles that consumed entire star systems. Weapons that could crack planets, beings of pure energy fighting across dimensions, and technologies so advanced they threatened the structure of reality itself. Each cycle, we reached further and achieved more, Da-Un explained. And each cycle, we nearly destroyed everything. The 9th cycle ended when we accidentally created a cascade reaction that would have unraveled space-time across half the galaxy. We barely stopped it in time. So you retreated, Taemin said. We evolved, Da-Un corrected. We realized that true advancement wasn't about building bigger machines or conquering more territory. It was about achieving wisdom, so we developed the cycle system. She stood and walked to a section of wall that showed complex diagrams. At the peak of each cycle, when our technology reaches a certain threshold, we make a choice. We can continue expanding until we destroy ourselves and everything around us, or we can choose to begin again. Begin again how? Veltor asked. We dismantle our galactic infrastructure, hide our most dangerous technologies, and return to Earth. Dae-Yun explained. Not all of us. Many choose to remain in deep space as observers and guardians. But the core population comes home and we start over. Start over completely? Taemin asked. Not completely, Dae-Yun said. That's where we come, in. She gestured to herself with a mixture of pride and weariness. I am what we call a memory keeper. In every cycle, some of us are chosen to remember everything. We preserve the knowledge, maintain the hidden facilities, and guide the new civilization as it develops. How long have you been doing this, Doctor? Kexra asked. This role? About 40,000 years, Da-Un said casually. Though I was a quantum engineer in my previous life, and before that I spent 30,000 years as a stellar architect. The alien stared at her in shock. She looked like a woman in her 40s, but she had just claimed to be older than most of their civilizations. We extend our lives as needed, Da-Un explained. Not indefinitely. That leads to stagnation, but long enough to maintain continuity between cycles. How many of you are there? Taemin asked. Memory keepers? Currently about 50,000 on Earth, maybe twice that scattered across the galaxy. We keep the infrastructure running, monitor developing civilizations, and decide when it's time to reveal ourselves. The wall display changed to show a complex web spanning the galaxy, trade routes, communication networks, and defensive systems that connected thousands of worlds. This is what you call the galactic community, Da-Un said. But it's not a natural development. We built this network over millions of years, creating safe zones where young species could develop without destroying themselves. You've been manipulating us, Taemin said, his voice angry. We've been protecting you, Da-Un replied firmly. Do you know how many wars we've prevented? How many species we've saved from extinction? How many times we've intervened to stop galactic catastrophes? She touched the wall, and it showed a series of events, stellar disasters that mysteriously resolved themselves, invasive technologies that suddenly stopped working, aggressive species that abruptly became peaceful. The Corvani-Zenthari War. That ended suddenly 5 million years ago. We stopped it by making their weapons stop working. The plague that threatened to wipe out the Veltar civilization. We developed the cure and left it where they would find it. The Nexus Gate disaster. That could have destroyed this entire star cluster. We contained it and made it look like a natural phenomenon. Why? Veltor asked. Why protect us if we're so primitive? Because every species has potential, Da-Un said gently. And because we learned long ago that the universe is better with more voices in it, not fewer. Diversity of thought and experience makes everyone stronger. But you still see us as children, Taemin accused. No, Da-Un said, surprising him. We see you as young. There's a difference. Children lack the capacity for adult understanding. Young beings simply lack experience. You can learn, grow, and eventually become our equals. Many species have. What species? Dr. Kexra asked. Da-Yun smiled mysteriously. You'd be surprised how many of the ancient civilizations in the Galactic Council are actually human graduates. Species we guided to full development and who chose to maintain the secret. The implications hit Taemin like a physical blow. The Council itself is mostly run by humans and human graduates, yes, Da-Un confirmed. Though the individual members don't know it. They think they've developed naturally and discovered each other through normal galactic evolution. This is insane, Taemin said, standing up abruptly. You're telling me that human history, galactic history, everything we know is a lie. Not a lie, Da-Un said patiently. A simplified version. We've been waiting for your species to mature enough to handle the complete truth. And you think we're ready now? Da-Un considered the question seriously. Your reaction will determine that. Some species respond to this revelation with curiosity and wonder. Others respond with anger and fear. A few try to steal our technology and use it for conquest. What happens to those species? Veltor asked nervously. We protect them from themselves, Da-Un said simply, usually by limiting their access to dangerous technologies until they develop better judgment. She walked to another section of the wall, which showed Earth as it was now, blue and green and peaceful. This is the beginning of our 13th cycle. For the past 10,000 years, we've been rebuilding human civilization from the ground up, learning from the mistakes of previous cycles. What makes this cycle different? Taemin asked. This time, we're not doing it alone, Da-Un said. This is the first cycle where we've revealed ourselves to other species while we're still in the early stages. We're hoping to build something new. A truly collaborative galactic civilization. And if we refuse to collaborate? Taemin asked. Da-Un's expression grew sad. Then you continue as you have been, never knowing the full truth, living in the safe spaces we've prepared for. You. It's not a bad life, Ambassador. Many species are quite happy with it. But it's not a free life, Taemin said. Freedom is earned through wisdom, Da-Un replied. We learned that lesson the hard way, over many cycles and many disasters. True freedom, the freedom to shape reality itself, can only be given to those who understand the consequences of their actions. The room fell silent as the aliens absorbed what they had learned. Everything they had believed about themselves, their history, and their... Dr. Jiho had been waiting his entire career for this moment. As Earth's leading astrophysicist, he had spent decades staring at stars and wondering about the strange patterns he saw in their formations. Now, in an observation chamber that existed, partially outside normal space, he finally had permission to show the truth. Ambassador Tai Min and his team floated in comfortable chairs that adjusted to zero gravity. Around them, the walls displayed a perfect view of the galaxy as it truly was. Not the simplified maps the Galactic Council used, but the complete picture that only humans possessed. "What you're about to see," Ji-Ho said, his voice carrying the weight of ancient secrets, "will explain why we've been so careful about revealing ourselves. Every star chart you've ever used, every map of galactic civilization, every timeline of species development, all of it is incomplete." He gestured, and the display zoomed in on a region near the galactic core. "This is the area your people call the dead zone. You think it's a natural phenomenon, a region where stars burned out early due to cosmic radiation. The view changed, showing the same region as it had existed 50 million years ago. Instead of empty space and dead stars, it blazed with the light of 1,000 civilizations. Massive structures connected entire star systems, artificial worlds gleamed like jewels, and energy patterns suggested technology beyond current galactic understanding. This was the Corvani Empire at its height, Ji-Ho explained. 200 star systems, 50 billion citizens, technology that could manipulate matter at the quantum level. They were magnificent. "What happened to them?" Veltor asked, though something in his voice suggested he already suspected the answer. "They discovered our ruins from the 5th cycle," Ji-Ho said sadly. "Found one of our abandoned research stations and tried to reverse engineer technology they weren't ready for." The display showed the final days of the Corvani Empire. Cities burning as exotic weapons tore apart the fabric of space, stars going supernova as containment fields failed, and finally, the cascade reaction that sterilized 200 star systems in a matter of hours. "We tried to stop it," Ji-Ho continued. "Sent warning messages, disabled some of their more dangerous experiments, even revealed ourselves to their leadership. But they thought they could control what they had found." Dr. Kexra was taking readings from the display, and his instruments were showing impossible results. "These aren't recordings. These are real-time observations of events that happened 50 million years ago. Time is more flexible than your physics currently understands," Ji-Ho explained. "When you can manipulate space-time directly, the past becomes just another place you can visit." The view shifted to another region of the galaxy, showing the remnants of what had once been a thriving stellar neighborhood. "The Zenthari hegemony," Ji-Ho said. "They lasted longer than the Corvani, almost 1,000,000 years after they found our technology. But the result was the same." "How many?" Taemin asked quietly. "How many civilizations have destroyed themselves trying to use human technology?" Ji-Ho considered the question. 43 major galactic powers over the past 50 million years, hundreds of smaller species. Each time we learned to hide our artifacts better, but some always slip through. The display showed a graveyard of civilizations, dead star systems, shattered worlds, and regions of space where reality itself had been damaged by weapons too powerful for their creators to control. "You see why we're careful now," Ji-Ho said. "Every piece of human technology from our peak cycles is potentially civilization-ending if misused. A simple matter converter can destroy a planet if the safety protocols are bypassed. A basic FTL drive can create black holes if improperly calibrated. But You've shared some technology with the current council species, Dr. Kexra pointed out. Carefully selected and heavily modified versions, Jiho confirmed. We've removed the dangerous components and built-in safeguards that prevent misuse. What you think of as advanced galactic technology is actually the remedial version we create. For developing species, he showed them examples. The FTL drives used by council ships were crude, limited versions of human technology from millions of years ago. The energy weapons were deliberately inefficient to prevent them from being scaled up to planet-killing power. Even the communication networks had built-in restrictions that prevented them from being used to coordinate large-scale warfare. The entire galactic community exists within a technological sandbox we created, Jiho explained. You have enough technology to be comfortable and productive, but not enough to threaten yourselves or others. That's humiliating, Taemin said. That's survival, Jiho replied firmly. Do you know what unrestricted access to fifth-cycle human technology would do to your species? Within a century, you'd either transcend physical existence entirely or blow up half the galaxy trying. The display changed to show current galactic civilization from a human perspective. What the council species saw as a natural network of trade routes and communication links was revealed to be a carefully constructed maze, guiding development along safe paths while keeping dangerous technologies out of reach. Every natural hyperspace lane was carved by human engineers, Jiho said. Every ancient artifact that provides clean energy was planted by us. Every mysterious force that prevents wars from escalating beyond a certain point is actually a human intervention. System. You're treating the entire galaxy like children, Veltor accused. We're treating the galaxy like what it is, a collection of young civilizations with powerful toys, Jiho replied. Would you give quantum explosives to a species that still settles disputes through warfare? Some species might be ready, Taemin argued. Which ones? Jiho asked. The Corvani thought they were ready. So did the Zenthari. So did the Feltar Consortium, the Nexus Alliance, and 38 other galactic powers that no longer exist. He showed them the testing criteria humans use to evaluate species readiness. It wasn't just technological development, but social, cohesion, philosophical maturity, and what humans called wisdom indicators. The ability to consider long-term consequences and prioritize collective well-being over individual power. By our standards, Jiho said gently, most current galactic species are still in their early adolescence, clever, energetic, and absolutely convinced they know better than their elders. How do species graduate from this supervision? Dr. Kexra asked. Very few do, Jiho admitted. In 50 million years of observation, only 12 species have developed sufficient wisdom to handle unrestricted human technology. Most are content to remain in the sandbox. It's comfortable there, and they never know what they're missing. And the 12 that graduated? Jiho smiled mysteriously. They help us maintain the system. You've met several of them on the Galactic Council, though they appear to be separate species with their own independent histories. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council that Taemin had thought was a natural development of mature civilizations was actually a carefully managed nursery, run by humans and the few species they had judged worthy of the truth. This changes everything, Taemin said. Our entire understanding of galactic politics, of our place in the universe. Your place in the universe is whatever you choose to make it, Jiho said. But that choice comes with consequences. You can remain as you are, comfortable and safe within the boundaries we've established. Or you can work toward graduating to the next level. What does graduation involve? Veltor asked. Centuries of careful development, Jiho replied. Learning to think in longer time scales, developing genuine wisdom rather than just intelligence, and proving that you can handle power without being corrupted by it. He showed them examples of the graduated species, beings who had learned to see beyond their own immediate needs, who thought in terms of galactic ecology rather than individual advancement, and who had developed what humans called deep time. Perspective. It's not easy, Jiho warned. Most species find it easier to remain in the comfortable illusion that they're already advanced. The truth is that real advancement, the kind that lets you safely reshape reality, requires giving up many of the things young civilizations think are important. Such as? Taemin asked. Competition for resources becomes meaningless when you can create matter from energy. Territorial expansion becomes pointless when you can create your own dimensions. Even individual survival becomes less important when consciousness can be preserved and transferred. That sounds like losing what makes you, Dr. Kexra said. Or it sounds like growing up, Jiho replied. Children think that adulthood means losing the freedom to play whenever they want. Adults understand that maturity brings different freedoms. The freedom to create, to nurture, to shape the world for the better. The display showed Earth as it currently was, but overlaid with the invisible infrastructure that surrounded it. Orbital platforms that could reshape matter at the molecular level, energy collectors that drew power from alternate dimensions, and observation networks that monitored every star in the galaxy. This is what real advancement looks like, Jiho said. Not conquest or expansion, but stewardship. Not power over others, but responsibility for the whole. And you think some of our species might be ready for this? Taemin asked. Elder Kyung-ho had been alive for longer than most stars. He remembered when this galaxy was young and chaotic, when civilizations rose and fell like waves on a beach, when the space between worlds was filled with violence and fear. Now he sat in a chamber that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, preparing to share the deepest secret of human existence. Ambassador Taemin and his team had been through days of revelations that had shattered their understanding of reality. They looked tired, overwhelmed, and just a little afraid. Kyung-ho understood. He had felt the same way when he first learned the truth, back when he was young and this galaxy seemed infinite with possibility. You have learned much, Kyung-ho said, his voice carrying the weight of eons. You know that humans are ancient, that we have guided galactic development for millions of years, that we maintain the systems that keep young civilizations safe. But you have not yet learned why. The chamber around them began to shift, walls becoming transparent to reveal not the underground facility they had been visiting, but space itself. They floated among the stars, watching the slow dance of galaxies across billions of years. This is the universe as it was when humans first achieved consciousness, Kyung-ho explained. The view around them showed a cosmos in chaos. Galaxies, colliding without pattern, stars being born and dying in violent cascades, and space itself twisted by forces beyond control. There was no order then, he continued. No natural laws that promoted stability. No patterns that encouraged the development of life. The universe was a random storm of energy and matter, creating and destroying without purpose. But the laws of physics, Dr. Kexra began, are not natural, Kyung-ho finished gently. They are agreements, rules that consciousness imposes on reality to make existence possible. The view changed, showing the first human civilization, not on Earth, but scattered across dimensions that no longer existed, beings of pure thought learning to give structure to chaos. The first humans were not biological creatures like we are now, Kyung-ho explained. They were patterns of consciousness that arose from the quantum foam itself. They existed as living mathematics, thinking in pure concepts without physical form. That's impossible, Veltor said. Consciousness requires a substrate, brains, computers, something physical. Does it? Kyung-ho asked. Or is that simply what consciousness tells itself when it wants to exist in a physical universe? He showed them the first great work of humanity, the establishment of fundamental constants. The speed of light, the strength of gravity, the behavior of atoms, all of it carefully designed by minds that could think in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Your physics textbooks call these values fundamental constants, Kyung-ho said. But they're actually carefully chosen parameters, selected to create a universe where matter can form complex structures, where energy can organize itself into patterns, where life can emerge and grow. You're saying humans created the laws of physics? Taemin asked, his voice strained. We're saying humans negotiated them, Kyung-ho corrected. In the beginning, there were many forms of consciousness, many different ideas about what reality should be. There was disagreement. The view around them showed something that defied description. A war fought across dimensions by beings of pure thought, where the weapons were competing theories of reality and the battlefield was existence itself. The war of concepts, Kyung-ho said softly. It lasted for what you would call billions of years, though time itself was different then. Different forms of consciousness tried to impose their vision of reality on the universe. Some wanted pure energy, others wanted solid matter. Some preferred chaos, others demanded perfect order. What ended it? Dr. Kexra asked. Compromise, Kyung-ho said. The realization that a universe could be stable enough for complex patterns to form, but flexible enough for consciousness to grow and change. The current laws of physics are the peace treaty. The view shifted to show the universe as it became after the war. Stable galaxies forming, stars burning with predictable patterns, and the first primitive forms of biological life emerging on countless worlds. But peace treaties require enforcement, Kyung-ho continued, and that became humanity's role. We took on the responsibility of maintaining the agreements, ensuring that the fundamental laws remained stable while allowing for growth and change. Within them, you became the Watchers, Taemin said. We became the Gardeners, Kyung-ho corrected. The universe is not a machine that runs by itself. It is a garden that requires constant tending. Every star that burns stably, every planet that maintains a life-supporting environment, every species that develops without destroying itself, all of it requires subtle guidance. He showed them the true scope of human activity across the galaxy. What appeared to be natural phenomena were revealed as carefully maintained systems. The galactic magnetic fields that protected star systems from cosmic radiation were human constructs. The patterns of stellar formation that created stable neighborhoods for life were guided by human influence. Even the quantum fluctuations that allowed consciousness to emerge from complex matter were shaped by human intent. You control everything, Veltor said, and there was fear in his voice. We tend everything, Kyung-ho corrected patiently. Control implies force, domination, the imposition of will against resistance. Tending implies care, guidance, the creation of conditions where things can grow according to their nature. What's the difference? Taemin asked. Control says, You will be what I want you to be, Kyung-ho explained. Tending says, I will create the conditions where you can become what you are meant to be. He showed them examples, species that had been guided away from self-destruction not through force, but through the careful arrangement of circumstances. Wars that had ended not because human weapons forced peace, but because human influence had created opportunities for understanding. Technologies that had been developed not because humans had given them to species, but because humans had arranged for those species to discover them at the right time. Every coincidence that saved a civilization from disaster, Kyung-ho said. Every lucky break that allowed a species to survive a crisis. Every natural phenomenon that prevented a war or encouraged cooperation. Most of it is us, working behind the scenes to maintain the garden. Why not reveal yourselves? Dr. Kexra asked. Why work in secret? Because the garden grows best when the plants don't know they're being tended, Kyung-ho replied. Species need to feel that their achievements are their own, that their growth is authentic. If they knew that every step was guided, they would lose the drive to develop, the pride in their accomplishments, the sense of purpose that makes life meaningful. But some of us do know, Taemin pointed out. Some individuals, yes, Kyung-ho agreed. Those who show the wisdom to handle the knowledge without being crushed by it. Those who can learn to see the garden as a whole rather than just their small part of it. The view around them expanded to show not just the galaxy, but neighboring galaxies, all of them showing the subtle signs of human influence. Stars arranged in patterns that promoted stability, cosmic structures that channeled energy in life-supporting ways, and the faint signatures of monitoring systems that watched over everything. This is our true work, Kyung-ho said. Not just tending one galaxy, but maintaining the entire local group. Billions of galaxies, trillions of star systems, countless species all growing and developing under our care. How many of you are there? Veltor asked. Fewer than you might think, Kyung-ho replied. When you can manipulate matter and energy directly, when you can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, when you can stretch your consciousness, across light years of space, you don't need large numbers to accomplish vast tasks. Are you still human? Taemin asked. In any sense that we would recognize? Kyung-ho smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like what he appeared to be. An elderly man with kind eyes and gentle hands. I remember being young. I remember learning to walk, the first time I saw snow, the day I decided to become a diplomat. I remember falling in love, losing people I cared about, making mistakes and learning from them. In all the ways that matter, I am still human. But you're also something more, Dr. Kexra observed. I am what humans become when they accept the responsibility of tending the garden, Kyung-ho said. Not better than what I was, just expanded. Like a child growing into an adult or a student becoming a teacher. Could we become like you? Taemin asked. If you choose to, Kyung-ho replied. But the choice comes with costs. You would have to give up the simple pleasures of existing only for yourself. You would have to accept responsibility for the well-being of species you've never met, worlds you've never seen, futures you won't live to see in your current form. What kind of future are you tending toward? Veltor asked. Kyung-ho's expression grew thoughtful. A universe where consciousness can grow without limit, where every possible form of beauty can be explored, where the garden tends itself because every part of it understands its role in the whole. When will that happen? Taemin asked. When it's ready, Kyung-ho said simply. Gardens cannot be rushed. They must be allowed to grow at their own pace, in their own way. Our job is not to force the outcome, but to ensure that growth remains possible. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Representatives from 17 species filled the great chamber, their voices rising in heated argument as Ambassador Tae Min finished his report. What he had told them challenged every assumption their civilizations had built their identities upon. Commander Sora stood at the central podium, her presence commanding attention despite her human appearance. She had revealed herself as one of the ancient Watchers, though she looked no older than 30. Her eyes held depths that spoke of experiences spanning millennia. "You're asking us to believe," shouted Counselor Rex Yan of the Corvani descendants, "that everything we've achieved, everything we've built, is because these humans allowed it?" "Not allowed," Sora corrected patiently. "Enabled. There's a difference between permission and empowerment." "Semantics," spat Counselor Velmora of the Zenthari Union. "You've been manipulating us for millions of years, treating us like pets in a cosmic zoo." "We've been protecting you," Sora replied, her voice carrying quiet authority. "From yourselves, from each other, and from forces you're not yet ready to face." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some species demanded immediate access to true human technology. Others called for rebellion against human oversight. A few sat in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of what they had learned. Counselor Dexra of the Feltar Syndicate stood slowly. She was old even by galactic standards, and her words carried weight. "Let us assume this is all true, that humans are these ancient gardeners you claim to be. What happens now? What do you want from us?" Sora gestured, and the chamber's walls became transparent, showing views of the galaxy in real time. But this wasn't the sanitized version the Council usually saw. This showed everything: the hidden human installations, the monitoring networks, the subtle interventions happening at thousands of locations simultaneously. "We want you to choose," Sora said simply. "For the first time in galactic history, we're offering other species the chance to participate consciously in their own development." "What kind of choice?" asked Counselor Naitar of the Aquatic Confederation. "D. Same choice humanity made long ago," Sora explained. "You can continue as you have been, safe, comfortable, guided, but unaware. Or you can accept the responsibility that comes with true knowledge and help us tend the garden." The display changed to show two possible futures. In one, galactic civilization continued its current path, peaceful, prosperous, but ultimately limited. Species developed within careful boundaries, achieved modest goals, and lived pleasant lives without ever reaching their full potential. In the other future, the galaxy blazed with conscious collaboration. Species worked together across dimensional barriers, reshaping reality itself, exploring possibilities that current physics couldn't even imagine. But the dangers were proportional to the opportunities. The power to create was also the power to destroy on a cosmic scale. The second path requires wisdom we're not sure you possess, Sora said honestly. It means thinking beyond your individual species, beyond immediate gains, beyond the comfortable illusions that make existence simple. Counselor Rex Yan stood again, his face flushed with anger. "And who decides if we're wise enough? You? Based on what criteria?" "Based on how you handle this conversation," Sora replied. "Right now, you're demonstrating exactly why we've been careful about revealing the truth." "How dare you judge us?" Rex Yan shouted. We demand access to your real technology. We demand representation in whatever shadow government actually runs. The galaxy. And there it is, Sora said sadly. The first response. Not, how can we help? Or, what does the galaxy need? But what can we get for ourselves? Other counselors began voicing similar demands. They wanted human technology, human knowledge, human power, but showed little interest in human responsibility. The chamber, filled with the sound of species competing for advantage, exactly as Sora had expected. But not all the voices were demanding. Counselor Dexra spoke again, her words cutting through the noise. Commander, what would accepting this responsibility actually involve? The chamber quieted, waiting for the answer. It would mean seeing beyond your own species' needs, Sora explained. Understanding that every action affects the whole galaxy. Making decisions based on consequences that won't manifest for thousands of years. Accepting that sometimes the greatest good requires sacrificing immediate benefits. It would mean becoming gardeners instead of just plants, added Elder Kyung-ho, who had quietly entered the chamber. Learning to tend rather than just consume. What about our sovereignty? Asked Counselor Naitar. Our right to develop as we choose? Those don't change, Kyung-ho assured her. But you would gain the knowledge to make truly informed choices. You would understand the full consequences of your actions, not just the immediate ones. And if we choose the path of awareness but prove unworthy? Asked Dexra. Sora's expression grew grave. Then we would sadly but firmly return you to the protected path, as we have done with other species who chose power over wisdom. That's a threat, Rexian accused. That's a promise, Sora corrected. We will not allow the garden to be destroyed by those who mistake knowledge for wisdom, or power for maturity. The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted immediate integration into human society. Others demanded independence from all human influence. A few began discussing alliances to resist human oversight. Watching it all, Elder Kyung-ho felt the familiar sadness of watching young minds confront truths they weren't ready for. This was why humanity rarely revealed itself. Most species couldn't handle the knowledge without being corrupted by it. But then Counselor Dexra did something unexpected. She stood and walked to the center of the chamber, placing herself next to Sora. I have listened to all of you, she said, her voice carrying across the noise, and I hear only one question being asked. What can we get from the humans? But that's the wrong question. The chamber fell silent. The right question, Dexra continued, is what can we give? If these humans have truly been tending the galaxy for millions of years, maintaining peace, preventing disasters, guiding us away from self-destruction, then they have been serving us all this time. And what have we given them in return? They never asked for anything in return, Rexian protested. Exactly, Dexra said. They have been giving freely, asking nothing, taking on responsibility for our well-being without any compensation. And now when they offer to share that responsibility, our first instinct is to demand more benefits for ourselves. She turned to face Sora. Commander, what does the galaxy need from us? Not what can we get, but what can we contribute? Sora smiled, and for the first time since the session began, it was a smile of genuine hope. We need partners, Counselor. Beings who can see beyond their own immediate concerns and help maintain the balance that keeps billions of species safe and free to grow. What would that partnership look like? Dexra asked. Different for each species, Kyung-ho replied. Some might help monitor dangerous technologies. Others might assist with guiding young civilizations. A few might join us in the deep work of maintaining the fundamental structures that keep reality stable. And in return? In return, you would know the truth, Sora said. You would see the universe as it really is, understand your place in the vast pattern of existence, and help shape the future of consciousness itself. Counselor Naitar stood slowly. I would like to learn more about this partnership. As would I, said another voice from the back of the chamber, but Rexian's response was predictable. This is madness. We're talking about surrendering our independence to alien overlords. No, Dexra said firmly. We're talking about growing up, about accepting that with knowledge comes responsibility, that with power comes obligation, that with wisdom comes the duty to serve something larger than ourselves. The chamber divided along predictable lines. Some species chose the path of conscious partnership, willing to trade comfort for truth and responsibility. Others demanded independence, preferring the illusion of self-determination to the reality of cosmic interdependence. A few chose to wait, hoping for more information before making their decision. Sora watched it all with the patience of someone who had seen this play out many times before. For those who choose partnership, she said, the training begins immediately. For those who choose independence, nothing changes. You continue as you have been, within the boundaries we've established for your safety. And for those who try to force access to your technology, Rexian asked defiantly. Elder Kyung-ho's expression grew sad but firm. Then they discover why we've survived for so long while other galactic powers have fallen. We don't like using force, Counselor, but we won't allow the garden to be destroyed by those who mistake aggression for strength. As the session ended, the galaxy found itself at a crossroads. For the first time in millions of years, some species would graduate to conscious participation in their own development. Others would remain comfortable in their carefully maintained ignorance. And a few would have to learn the hard way that wisdom cannot be stolen, only earned. The choice of ages had been offered. Now came the consequences of those choices. 1 year after the Great Revelation, President Nam-Su stood before the largest gathering in human history. The assembly hall existed in folded space, allowing beings from across the galaxy to attend in person despite the vast distances involved. Representatives from 43 species sat alongside humans, while billions more watched through quantum-linked communication networks that spanned multiple dimensions. Today marks the beginning of something unprecedented, Nam-Su began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. For the first time in our long history, humanity will not cycle alone. In the front row, Ambassador Tae-min sat with the other species representatives who had chosen the path of conscious partnership. His people, the Velkari, had been among the first to volunteer for what humans called deep time training, learning to think in geological time scales and consider consequences across millions of years. Behind them sat representatives of species who had chosen different paths. Some had opted to remain in the comfortable boundaries of guided development. Others had demanded complete independence and were learning to manage the responsibilities that came with it. A few had tried to steal human technology and were now under careful supervision until they developed better judgment. The 13th cycle of human civilization begins today, Nam-Su continued. But unlike the previous 12, we do not begin it alone. We begin it with partners who have chosen to share the responsibility of tending the galactic garden. Dr. Yunji stepped forward to address the assembly. She had revealed herself as one of the oldest memory keepers, having guided human development through 4 complete cycles. Despite her apparent youth, she had lived for over 200,000 years, preserving knowledge and wisdom across the rise and fall of human galactic civilizations. In previous cycles, she explained, humans reached the peak of technological development and then chose to return to simplicity, starting over with accumulated wisdom but basic tools. This time, we're trying something different. The hall's displays showed Earth as it was now, not the primitive world the galaxy had first encountered, but a carefully balanced blend of advanced technology and natural beauty. Cities that grew, like living things, transportation networks that worked with natural systems rather than replacing them, and energy sources that enhanced rather than depleted the environment. Instead of abandoning our technology completely, Yunji continued, we're learning to use it wisely from the beginning. Instead of expanding endlessly until we threaten ourselves and others, we're growing deliberately and sustainably. Counselor Dexra of the Feltar Syndicate stood to address the assembly. Her species had been among the most enthusiastic about joining the new cycle, and she had spent the past year learning what humans called deep wisdom, the kind of thinking that considered consequences across cosmic timescales. My people want to thank the humans for this opportunity, she said. For a year, we have been learning to see the galaxy as humans see it, not as a collection of resources to be exploited, but as a garden to be tended. It has changed us in ways we never expected. She gestured to her fellow Feltar representatives. We no longer think primarily about what we can gain from other species, but about what we can contribute to the whole. We no longer measure success by how much we can consume, but by how much we can nurture. Similar testimonials came from other species. The Aquatic Confederation had learned to see their water worlds not as isolated homes, but as crucial components in the galaxy's ecological balance. The Crystalline Collective had discovered that their unique ability to store information in mineral matrices made them ideal keepers of long-term galactic memory. But not all the news was positive. Commander Sora reported on the species that had chosen independence and were struggling with the realities of unguided development. The Corvani descendants demanded access to unrestricted technology, she said sadly. When we explained the safeguards built into their current systems, they began trying to remove them. We had to intervene when their modifications threatened to destabilize 3-star systems. What happened to them? Asked Counselor Naitar. They're learning patience, Sora replied diplomatically. Under careful supervision, with limited access to dangerous technologies until they develop better judgment. Elder Kyung-ho took the podium to address the deeper implications of what they were attempting. For millions of years, humanity has followed a cycle of growth, peak achievement, voluntary simplicity, and rebirth. Each cycle taught us more about the balance between power and wisdom, between advancement and sustainability. The displays showed the rise and fall of previous human civilizations, the incredible technologies they had developed, the near disasters they had narrowly avoided, and the hard-won wisdom that came from each cycle's experiences. But cycles have a weakness, Kyung-ho continued. They're solitary. Each cycle, humanity had to rediscover certain truths, relearn certain lessons, rebuild certain relationships. Knowledge was preserved, but experience had to be gained anew. This time, we're not cycling alone. Our partner species will provide continuity, different perspectives, and shared responsibility. When humans are tempted by the old patterns of unlimited expansion, our partners can remind us of the costs. When our partners face challenges we've seen before, we can share the wisdom we've gained. Dr. Wu Jin presented the technical aspects of the new cycle. Underground facilities across Earth had been converted from hidden preservation sites to open research centers where humans and aliens worked together on technologies that enhanced rather than replaced natural systems. We're developing what we call symbiotic technology, he explained. Instead of imposing our will on the environment, we're learning to work with it. Instead of replacing natural processes, we're enhancing them. Examples filled the displays. Cities that purified air and water while providing homes for billions, transportation systems that strengthened the ecosystems they moved through, and energy networks that increased biodiversity rather than depleting it. But the real breakthrough, Wu Jin continued, is collaborative consciousness. For the first time, multiple species are thinking together about long-term galactic development. This was the most radical experiment of all. Using human-developed, consciousness-linking technology, volunteer representatives from different species could share thoughts, experiences, and perspectives directly. The insights gained from these collaborative thinking sessions were already revolutionizing approaches to galactic challenges. As the ceremony continued, Dr. Boram announced the establishment of the first Interspecies Deep Time Institute. Here, beings from different worlds will learn to think in geological timescales, to consider the consequences of actions across millions of years, and to develop the wisdom necessary for cosmic stewardship. The first class would include representatives from 12 species, all of whom had demonstrated the psychological flexibility necessary for deep-time thinking. They would spend decades learning not just human knowledge but human wisdom, the accumulated understanding of how to grow without destroying, how to advance without losing sight of what truly mattered. Ambassador Taemin was invited to speak on behalf of the participating species. A year ago, my people thought we were joining a galactic community of equals, he said. We discovered instead that we were children in a nursery, lovingly tended by beings so ancient we couldn't comprehend their true nature. The revelation was humbling, he continued, but also liberating. We no longer had to pretend we understood everything. We could admit our limitations and learn from those who had faced our challenges before. Now we're not just students in the human school of cosmic development. We're junior partners in the great work of galactic gardening. It's a responsibility that both terrifies and exhilarates us. As the ceremony reached its climax, President Namsu made the announcement that would echo across the galaxy. Today, humanity officially begins its 13th cycle. But for the first time in our long history, we do not cycle back to simplicity. We cycle forward to complexity, the complexity of shared responsibility, collaborative wisdom, and interspecies partnership. The age of solitary development is ending, he declared. The age of conscious collaboration begins now. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, the species that had chosen partnership celebrated their inclusion in humanity's greatest experiment. Those who had chosen independence watched nervously, wondering if they had made the right choice. And those under supervision for attempting to steal human technology began to understand that wisdom truly couldn't be taken by force. Dr. Da-Un, the memory keeper who had first revealed the truth to the aliens, stood to deliver the final words of the ceremony. For millions of years, humanity has asked the same question at the end of each cycle. Have we learned enough to grow beyond our limitations? Today, for the first time, we're not asking that question alone. We're asking it with partners who share our commitment to growth, our dedication to service, and our hope for a future where consciousness can expand without destroying what makes existence beautiful. She gestured to the mixed assembly of humans and aliens, all united in